All right, welcome back to another video where I prepared for the JNCIE-SP exam. In the last video, kind of got off to a slow start because I had some pretty major confusion where I was trying to enter in show route advertising protocol instead of what the document was telling me to do, show route receive protocol, and I was getting results I wasn't expecting. So just kind of important to keep things simple. Things can get complicated really fast. So just kind of something I wanted to mention because I never really called out specifically where I was going wrong. But let's keep moving. So I've checked all the other devices. So now it's time to check CE2. So it looks like I've got the route on CE2. Yep, and this is the route that was on CE1, same old route we've been chasing down the whole time. So let's see if I can go ahead and ping that. So one thing to note, so this is very much successful. So let's do another pop quiz here. Let's say I take out the source address. So yes, no, is it going to be successful? 3, 2, 1. Well, no, it's not going to be successful. And that's because the source address, let's see here, so show int terse. So we've got a number of addresses, but from what I understand, and I wish I could double check, as it was explained to me, the source address is the one that is where the closest to where it leaves. So if I do a show, so I was pinging 192.0.2.1. So if I look at the routing table, 192.0.2.1, you can see that it's via this interface here. So if I look at the configuration on that interface, so show configuration interface pipe, we'll just look at it. So that's the source address it's going to use by default because it's via this interface. So if I want to use the interface on the loopback, I'm going to need to explicitly state that through this special source command here. So you might think, oh, well, what's the big deal about using this GE000.0 address? Like why wouldn't that work? Well, if we go on to P2 here, and we take a look at the configuration for the L3 Vpn. So this is for routes entering or leaving the L3 Vpn. So configuration routing instances, and I've got VPN2. We see that we're importing routes here. So let's take a look at that policy. Show configuration policy options, and it's going to be policy statement VPN import. So you can see we're only importing BGP routes. But what kind of route is this? So we know that this route here, if we do a show configuration, and let me be clear about something because I made some errors earlier that I made all sorts of errors earlier, but one that is really going to throw you a loop if you go back and look at the video is I said that the connection here between the CE2 and the PE2 is another OSPF connection. That's not true at all. This is actually going to be a eBGP connection here, and then it's going to be different on the other side. It's just it's just the way the lab is set up. You can have them both being a OSPF connection. You can have them both being a eBGP connection. It really just is what they decided to do in the exercise. But in an earlier video, I kind of just assumed that the other side would be set up similarly. So that's definitely not the case. It's a BGP connection on this side. But you can see here, we're allowing those BGP routes to be imported into the policy because we've got the VRF import. So it's going to enter into this VRF. But if we do a show route, we can see that the only BGP routes we've got are the loopback address. And it looks like we've got some more that we received from the only direct routes, because we're talking about which source address you ping from. So of course, a source address, those are all going to be direct routes because they're the routes configured on this device. So the only direct routes we've got are this 192.0.2.8 route, and we've also got this 192.0.6/24. So we've got two choices that we can use for a source address. But if we go over to PE2 and we take a look at this route here, because PE2 will be learning that route, we can see it's a BGP route. And BGP is, as we saw here, a protocol that is being imported into the VRF. So all the BGP routes are going to be entered into the VRF. But if we take a look at this other route, that it's a directly connected route here on CE2, so it looks like this is a BGP route as well. Let me take a look at the show configuration in G000.0. So we've got .6.14/24. So we've got that .0 route. So we've got it in the VPN. That's interesting. That's actually not what I was expecting to see. But so I guess I'll kind of shift into talking more about like what I was expecting, because this is clearly something I'm going to need to kind of figure out. But well, let's go. So let's actually shift gears and take a look at where this is actually being learned, because it looks like, yes, this 192.168.3.0/24 it's going to be a local route. 192.168.3.0/24. So, okay. Let's take a look at show and descriptions. And we've got 000 going to P2, and then we've also got something going to CE1. So let's take a look at the configuration again. And you can see, yep. So kind of speaking more towards what I was expecting this to kind of demonstrate here, but unfortunately, there's things happening that I really wasn't expecting. Well, I wish we could dive into, but what I was expecting was you would see this route 192 dot, so it's going to be G000 192.168.6.0/24. I was expecting that you would see that route show up in the routing table here as a directly connected route, but it looks like instead what we're actually getting is a 192.168.6.0.6.0. We're actually okay. So this is actually more of what I was expecting. So yeah, we're getting a directly connected route, but yeah, we're also getting a BGP route. So the directly connected route is going to have a higher administrative, or sorry, a lower administrative distance, which is I think what it's called. I don't think it's called the same thing in Juniper. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's the same concept. So this is the route that's going to be used, and you can see it's got this star there. So that's going to mean that it's both the active route currently and the last active route. So this is kind of a little bit of a just a informational entry. It's really not what is being used. So show route forwarding table, and then we can have the table, and then the name of the routing table is this. Oops. There we go. So I think I can specify it even more. So, I mean, you can kind of see it there, but this actually this is kind of a little bit more than I wanted to get into, at least with this video, but this is the differences between the forwarding table and the routing table. So the routing table is more like control information. In fact, the routing table might even be in the control plane. That's something I think I'm gonna look up. Juniper routing table control or forwarding pane. So, oh, plane, it is plane, not pane, huh? Okay. But anyway, kind of without diving into too much detail and kind of getting off track, let's go back to the routing table that I wanted to look at. So VPN2 CE2. Oops. And we can see that route, and let's do a show route on that, 192.168.6.0, and now we can see it doesn't have an entry because it's the default routing table inet.0, which it's not going to be in there. It's going to be in a VPN. We want to keep this traffic private, so we got to add table. It's going to be VPN2 CE2. And you can tab that out. It's not the full name of the table. It's that plus inet.0. So still not showing up. VPN2 CE2 inet.0. 192. Oh, okay, I had 169 instead of 168. So okay, now we can see the direct is what's being used, but yeah, it is having a BGP route. That's something I wasn't expecting. I'm thinking it's configured somewhere else along here, like that subnet is there, but that's, oh, it's just learning. Oh, okay. So I can explain. I know what's going on. So it's receiving this route from CE2, through both as a directly connected route and as a BGP route. So if we look at the configuration here, we can see that we're exporting my routes. And you can see down here, these are direct routes as well. So this is completely, I think, well, is it unnecessary? It might not be, because you've got to send it through the VPN, but this is the source of my confusion, is that I wasn't expecting this to be redistributed from a connected route into BGP. And actually, it doesn't need to be sent through the VPN. Like, you wouldn't want this network sent to the VPN, because why would you want anyone to log into this either side of this link? There's no reason for that. You'd want your, if this is a chain of a grocery store in Illinois and this is your location in Wisconsin, you only want them to log into their stores, their point of sale systems, all of that, and that stuff you don't even want to see yourself. Like, you want to have everything private and secure. And so if you go ahead and redistribute the subnetwork for this link, you give them extra access to your IPs, and those are your IPs. Keep them private. Don't put them out there unless they need to go out there. So this is something I would say is perhaps a bit of a mistake in this lab. It's probably not worth a downvote, but adding a directly connected route into BGP, or at least the route that is just for this link here, is really not something I think is necessary. So that's kind of where my confusion is. But definitely on here, this is where it could make sense to add that into BGP, because then you wouldn't be adding it into your eBGP configuration. You'd be adding it into your VPN. So down here, you would be redistributing, or you'd be adding it into your IBGP here to ASBR2. So you wouldn't be adding it to your VPN like this. You'd be, well, actually, I'm not sure about this. So I'm going to do an experiment here. I actually just went through this. And another disclaimer, this is just, you're just hopping in the back seat of my car going off the cliff to the JNCIE-SP. So enjoy the ride. But what I was getting at is, we're only importing and exporting BGP routes. We're not doing that for direct routes. And you can see this is a direct route. It's got that star there. Yes, it's also a BGP route, but that's not the route that's active. So we're not importing that in there. So we can't ping without specifying the source, because it's automatically going to select this as the source address. And that address here is a direct type of network address, not a BGP type of network address. And we're not importing or exporting those kinds of addresses into the VPN. So of course it's not going to be able to make it all the way across. You can trace route to it. So you'll be able to trace route to the next hop here, 13, this PE2. But once you get there, you're not including directly connected routes into the VPN. So that's as far as you're going to get. So kind of for the sake of demonstration and to hopefully have this make sense. Sorry, it took me a while to kind of put this into thoughts, but I will go ahead and routing instances, VPN2, CE2, and actually I'm going to need to go back here and go to policy options, policy statement, and then I've only got, okay, so for the import, VPN import, pipe display set relative. Now I'm going to add to term one those protocol direct routes. Set term one from protocol direct. So now that I'm including direct routes, I'll be able to ping it without specifying the source, unless that didn't work. Maybe I need to add it to the export as well. I might even need to, yeah, I might need to add it to the export as well. I'll try that. I think I will need to do that actually, because it's going to need to, so I should maybe get, no, I'll still get stuck at that one hop if it's a problem with it being exported, but I'm going to try that. Hopefully that will change it. VPN export. So show pipe display set relative. Set term one from protocol direct. Show pipe compare. There we go. Commit. So now hopefully you can see that work. Perfect. So yeah, you can see you've got to add it both to the import and the export, I believe. For the sake of experimentation, why don't I just go ahead and roll back those two commits. So roll back two, show pipe compare. So we saw that if you add it to the import but not to the export, you can't use that direct route as a source address. So let's see what happens if you add it to the export but not the import, just for the sake of experimentation. So we're going to add it to the export. Show pipe display set relative. We're going to do set term one from protocol direct and commit that. And now we'll be able to see if it's got to be in both, if it's just got to be one. Okay. So it's just got to be in the export. If it's in the import but not the export, it's not going to work. If it's in the import and the export port, the only reason it worked was because it's in the export. So that's something that's good to know. I think it's important to always kind of experiment around like that, double check, kind of see how things work. Like, you know, ideally you will have read up on it and get an understanding through kind of the theory behind it and the concepts behind it, but sometimes really, unless you see it in the lab, it just never kind of drives home and you just never kind of can pick up on it. So set term one from protocol. And I'm just doing a sanity check, just making sure that it is the case that if it's imported but not exported, it does not work. So yep, that does appear to be the case. It's imported, but it's not exported. So you gotta export that directly connected network into the VPN if you want to use that as your source address on CE2. So reset that, everything back to normal. We just want to follow along with what was in the lab. So make sure it's still working using the source address here. Yep, looks good. So let's continue on. So now let's take a look at the labels, the MPLS labels that are going to be assigned to this. So in order to do that, we're going to have to jump over to PE2. So we've got to make sure that it's sent with a inner label and a top label. So in the example, they're going to have these, but we're going to get different ones because we're using different gear here. So label operation. Yep, we've got a inner label here, 16, and then 19 for the top. So jumping over to ASBR2. Everything looks pretty good there. Oh, okay, so here's those labels that we looked at before. I don't remember exactly what they were. One was 16, the other one was the top label. I mean, I can always go back and look it up. I can't hear whoever's watching this scream at the screen with me about how bad my working memory is sometimes, but that's okay because I can always go back and look it up. So I'll rerun that command and we'll see 19 and 16 are the two labels that we're interested in. So we got 16, and it looks like we're not going to get 19 showing up in here because that's a special kind of label. Looks like it's a top label, so it's probably not reasonable to expect that to be in the ASBR, which is another point I'll need to do further study on to be prepared for this exam. Well, we should see label operation pop. Yep. See the next hop be going to the ASBR2, or sorry, ASBR1. Yep. And now let's take a look at the show route table. This is the kind of thing you'll see in this a lot. So it says on router ASBR2, use the show route table command, but then it's not the show route table command. So it's probably not worth a downvote. I typically only downvote like pretty egregious things, but it's just kind of sometimes a bit rough to follow along when there's kind of minor things like that. It kind of throws my focus. It's like, oh man, if they just misspell a word or something. But so I wouldn't feel bad about downvoting something like that, but I just want to keep moving on. So, yep, everything looks good there. Let's go back to ASBR1. Okay, and let's do a show route on that. Got those, looks like we got a push, so a 16. I think it was 19 on the other one, so it's going to be a bit different. Let's go back to PE1. Show route. And here's another thing too. So this is configuration mode. That's what that means. You can see I've got a chevron or a greater than sign. So I'm in a different mode than they have here. Well, you can't do that sort of command in configuration mode. Show route to see it doesn't even take that. You'd have to do a run show route table mpls.0 detail. So that's kind of just the unfortunate thing. It's a great resource, it's available there, but you're going to run into things like that might throw you for a loop. So kind of my recommendation, instead of just getting stuck and giving up, just kind of skip it and move on, or downvote it, document it, keep a track of it. But not every documentation you'll find on here is useful, and unfortunately you will need to sometimes find a different source or just skip it and move on and hope that if it shows up on the test, you were kind of you're able to figure it out through the knowledge you already had, or it's just not worth that many points and you'll still pass. So that's kind of the unfortunate truth with what it takes to pass a Juniper exam sometimes. It's just that the limited material there is out for it. It's not like Cisco where you'll have a whole companies like CBT Nuggets, INE devoted to giving you top-notch material to help you pass. It's really just whatever you can get, and unfortunately that's not always the best. So yep, everything looks good here. They want to, I guess they want to verify that it receives that label that was sent from the ASBR1. So that's going to be in the show route detail command. It's going to be okay, so here on ASBR2, show route table mpls.0 detail. So okay, it's the one that's popping. So it's going to be this label 16 here. So they want you to verify that on here. So yep, we can see label 16 on P1. Yep, and is it popping? Yep, it's popping here as well. So let's continue and do a show route, and then that'll be the last command. That'll be the end of the video, and the next videos will be for the next example, option B. And unfortunately, at this stage in the test, I can't really tell you with too much certainty what the difference between option A and B and C are, and any of the really fine details. That's something I hope to have kind of at least a decent grasp of, but for now it's really about the things that I've been doing. The BGP neighborship wouldn't come up, so troubleshooting that, figuring that out. The OSPF neighborship couldn't come up. I was entering in the wrong commands, not knowing which direction the traffic was coming in. I was expecting a source address to be usable, but it wasn't because I wasn't exporting directly connected routes. That sort of thing is really kind of what I'm aiming for now. And then as it gets closer to the exam, I'm hoping to be able to kind of get closer into the details. I think I'm not quite close enough to the forest to start looking at the trees yet, or whatever. But yep, here it is, the final command. We've got everything showing up great. So yep, everything went well. So thank you for watching and kind of helping me struggle through it. It was quite the journey. So stay tuned for option B, where I'm sure it will be a lot more smooth. All right, have a great day.